in terms of common reasons that people want to learn how to invest. First of all, people want to learn cleaner, more efficient ways to earn money. When I say clean money, I'm talking about money that's not tainted by you having to do things you don't want to do or be around people you don't want to be around, or deal with racism, or deal with sexual harassment, or deal with a lifetime of slavery. You live in a world where black folks are pretty much trained to trade time for money. You're trading years of your life to get enough money, not to make you rich, but to get enough money to help you get by. So you're giving up your life just so you can survive in your life, which doesn't make a lot of sense. If you're going to get me to sell years of my life, you better make me a millionaire. Don't have me selling years of my life just so I can get by. You want to build a financial future for yourself. You want your life to elevate. You do not want to end the game in the same position that you were when you started the game. And you don't want your children starting the game in the same place that you started the game, because that doesn't make any sense. When the way you make your money in your 20s should not be the way you make your money in your 50s, 60s, and 70s. You're supposed to elevate and graduate, but the way you graduated, you got to know how to build that ladder. Maybe you're tired of the rut. I hated the rut. I appear to be a very hardworking entrepreneur because I pretty much work on what I'm doing 24/7 all the time, because it's the most important thing to me. But when I have a regular job, I'm absolutely the worst employee you will ever have in your life. If you have me doing something I'm not interested in or passionate about, I will get fired several times before the first week of work. Because you want to leave a generational legacy of wealth for your family, one of the big secrets of the wealthy is that wealthy people plan generation after generation. They say, the old saying is that wealthy people plan for the next generation and poor people plan for Saturday night, right? So the question is, when you're planning and you're thinking, are you spending as much time planning for 20, 30, 40 years in the future as you're spending planning for what's going to happen on Tuesday or Friday night when you go see the Black Panther, whatever it is? Because you want to understand how to invest in stocks safely and efficiently. There are safe ways to invest. We're going to get rid of some of those myths for you today. Also, you want to understand where your money's going, because if you don't know where your money's going, you won't know where your money went. Most people end up what I call accidentally broke. Like they lose track of their money because they're not really paying attention to where their money's going. It's just like time. One of the most effective time management techniques I learned, and time is very important because you invest time every day. You're investing time by sitting here because you could be doing a lot of things. Time is probably the most important asset that you'll ever invest in your life. So as long as you have free time, you're never truly broke. You just don't know how to translate that time into money, but you're never broke. You're always wealthy if you have time. And one of the things I learned as a time management technique is actually, I had a really good conversation, just ironically, it's just kind of a cool story, I think. I became really good friends with Will Smith's brother. I've never met Will Smith, but his brother Harry is the coolest dude ever. And he looks just like him, so it's very weird when he starts getting intense and he starts looking like Will, and I start getting starstruck because I'm like, wow, I've never talked to Will Smith. That's really cool. But Harry, one of the things Harry and I bonded on is the fact that we both are interested in financial stuff. We talk about finances and money and investing all the time. Also, and in fact, he was one of the, I think he was one of the more important people behind Will Smith's financial decisions and all that. But then, too, we talk a lot about time management. And one of the techniques that he mentioned he learned in school that was interesting, because I'd kind of discovered this technique on my own. I never read it in a book, but it's very effective. And he said what they told him to do in college when his grades were low was they told him to take your day and chop it into 15-minute increments, almost like little $5 bills, where every time 15 minutes goes by, you're investing that 15 minutes into something. And he said when he started seeing his life in 15-minute increments, he realized how much time he had. And so he'd waste a bunch of time, and he'd say, God, I still have all these 15-minute increments left to invest throughout the day. And that's when he started realizing how much time there is, that there's 168 hours in a week, there's 8,760 hours in a year, and you can actually accomplish quite a bit in that amount of time. And so ultimately, money and time are kind of the same way. When you are conscious and aware of where your resources are being allocated, when you're kind of paying attention, documenting, et cetera, you're not as likely to waste those resources as you are when you just kind of just go with the flow and live in the moment. So you ever see somebody get a check for let's say they work at a fast food restaurant, they get a check at the end of the week for $300. Has anybody ever had a shitty job? Raise your hand if you've had a shitty job where you were making no money at all. Y'all ain't never had to have a shitty job? Y'all too? I'm pointing my clicker at you. I know, you got the red dot on you. You better duck. No, but no, okay, well, anyway, I'm messing with you. So anyway, you ever get that little shitty paycheck that comes with a shitty job, the little $300 check, and for like a minute, you feeling like the richest person in the world? Have you ever done that? When I was in high school, I would get my check cash, and they would hand me a bunch of cash, and I would feel like a baller. I feel like Diddy in that moment, like I'm never gonna run out of money. Look at all these $20 bills I got, and you just start tricking off the money, $20 here, $5 there, $8, and then a week later, you're magically broke. Has anybody ever gone through that? Almost like you were like drunk or high or something, and I don't even drink or use drugs, but I imagine this is what it's like. Actually, money can be compared to a drug. There's studies that show that it affects your brain the same way. And I would be like, what happened? What? I was a baller like 5 days ago, now I'm broke. And what I realized is that, the reason that the money would just seem to disappear was because I would just spend it sort of just loosely and not be conscious of where all of that was going. And the same thing is true with time. Usually when I'm not tracking my time and being very conscious of where every 15, 30-minute interval is going, what would happen is the whole day would go by and I'd be like, God, where did the day go? But when I'm conscious of that, when I'm thinking to myself, okay, what am I going to do with the next 30 minutes? Okay, I'm going to work on this for the next 30. What am I going to do in the 30 minutes after that? I'm going to work on that. I find myself to be super productive. It feels like I have all the time in the world. And in fact, when Harry was telling me the story about when he switched over to that system, he said his grades went through the roof, because he realized he could still go to all the parties and go see his girlfriend and do whatever he wanted and still make straight A's. So the same thing is true with your money. You really want to be very conscious and thoughtful about where your money's going. You want to see your money as like little bullets in a gun that's like power, and you don't want to just sort of go spraying your bullets everywhere. You want to consciously and intelligently think about where you're allocating every penny that you get, and it'll feel like you have more money. So here are a few disclaimers about the stock market I'm going to give you real quick. These are just things that investment companies tell you, things like that, just to make sure that the expectations are properly managed in terms of what this is. The stock market is not a place to get rich quickly. It's a place to get rich slowly. Okay, a lot of get-rich-quick schemes are sold to black people, and because a lot of the examples of wealth that are marketed to you are rappers and athletes and stuff like that. People that get these $20 million contracts. That's not how people get rich. Most people that get rich in America are just regular people that drive pickup trucks and invest 10%, 20% of their paycheck every month or whatever. And next thing you know, they're millionaires. These are what they call David Bach refers to these people as automatic millionaires. Automatic millionaires are people who simply have over $1 million in assets because that $1 million is nothing more than a slow accumulation of little automatic steps that they've been taking every day, every month, every week, whatever, for the last 20 years, 30 years, okay? So ultimately, with the stock market, a few things. First of all, past performance does not predict future performance. There are lots of people who will say, oh, that stock did really well last year. I'm going to buy it because I expect it to do really well this year. That just does not work. That's not true. None of the theories support this idea. So you cannot predict what a stock is going to do next year based on what it did last year. But a lot of people, it seems like it should be that way, right? Because that's kind of the way media hype sort of works and all that. But I can tell you, I've analyzed the data. I've done all the research on this stuff, and I know that, and I can tell you it's just not true. Next, I'm an educator. I'm not an investment advisor. So if you say, Boyce, should I buy this stock or should I buy that stock? I won't have an answer for you. I can talk to you about the principles of investing and what diversification looks like, things like that, but I'm not here to tell you what to invest in and things like that. I can give you some thoughts and ideas and encourage you to think for yourself, but at the end of the day, the decision is yours. You're the boss. You're the leader. I'm just an advisor, or not an investment advisor, but an educational advisor. You can and will lose money in the stock market. That's one important thing people have to understand. The stock market, it's interesting. I can compare it to basketball. Imagine if somebody says, well, we're looking for the best basketball player in the world. And somebody says, well, go get LeBron James and Steph Curry. Those are two of the best in the world. And so you're going to have a great team if you get those two guys. And so let's say I go and I spend a bunch of money. I bring in LeBron James and Steph Curry. And then LeBron goes out in his first game, and LeBron shoots the ball, and he misses a shot. And then what if I turn to you and I say, oh, man, see, you told me to get this basketball guy, and he missed a shot. Get rid of him. He's terrible. You lied to me, right? That would sound crazy, right? Because LeBron misses lots of shots. He probably misses more shots in his career than most people ever take in their career. But the reason that LeBron's a great basketball player is because he makes more than he misses. The good outweighs the bad. So the stock market is the same way. The media tends to accentuate the short-term fluctuations in the market. The media tends to talk about, especially the crashes, in a very dramatic way because it gets headlines. It gets people to buy newspapers. It sells headlines. And basically, whenever the market goes down 3, 4, 5%, it's the big headline. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody panics. Everybody freaks out. the experts know that it's really not that big of a deal. So you will lose money in the stock market, but this is a long-term play. It's not a short-term thing. The goal is to make more than you lose. It's just like basketball. You say Michael Jordan, for example, he missed a lot of shots. Historically, losses in the stock market have been very limited in scope and time, very, very, very limited. For example, if you look at the last 25 years, going back to what is this, 2018, go back to 1993, anybody who had invested consistently since 1993 would have a lot of money. In fact, most people, if you invested the amount of money that you put into buying, say, fast food every day, if you took that same amount and had put it into the stock market, it wouldn't even matter which stocks you were buying. If you just randomly picked different stocks every time you bought, you probably have hundreds of thousands of dollars in your portfolio. Some of y'all would be millionaires because some people just, like they fat like I used to be and they buy all kinds of fast food. So my point is that ultimately, the idea is that the losses are short term, but it's the gains that are long term. The last 25 years, there have been a couple of crashes. There was a big crash right before President Obama went into office. There was a crash last week, I guess, because the whole thing with Trump and China and all that. But the crashes are few and far between. But what's happening in between the crashes is you're seeing up and up and up and up and up. And that's pretty much how the market has behaved for the last 120 years. That's why the easiest way to stay broke, stay poor, stay lower class, even lower middle class, wherever it is you are, is to avoid investing in the stock market because it is equivalent to, in fact, wealth. You can think of it a lot like driving from point A to point B. Because in fact, the same physics, the formula in physics that defines distance is what? Rate times time. It is how fast you go and how long you drive. So no matter how slow I'm driving, if I'm driving consistently and I just keep going and going and going, I can cover a very long distance. I can get from here to California going 1 mile an hour as long as I don't stop driving, right? So an investor is a person who has some kind of vehicle. That's why they call them investment vehicles. Some vehicle that's driving them to the land of wealth. They have some vehicle that's engaged in some sort of automatic process, where they might be going 5 miles an hour, but they're always moving, always moving, always moving, and so they can cover a very big distance. The person who doesn't invest is like the person who's standing still, the person who's sitting still. So the question you must ask yourself, and this is why it really literally makes almost no sense for a person to say that they think they can get rich, but they're not going to invest, is you must ask yourself, how is it possible for me to travel as far as you down the road when you're in a car and you're consistently moving and I am standing still? That doesn't happen. So when somebody talks to me about, being poor, being in the struggle and being broke and stuff like that, and they've been broke for 30 years, et cetera, but they're not investing, then I'm confused about why they're confused. But then I understand, but the confusion came from the fact that they were never trained on that very basic idea, that you can't travel down the road if you're not moving. So the question you must ask yourself economically is not, where am I? The question you should be asking yourself is, where am I going and how fast am I trying to get there? How consistently am I moving? So investing is the same idea. In fact, to go further with that analogy of driving the car, even a person who is, let's say that you have people that are trying to run down the road, right? That's kind of what it's like to try to build wealth by just working and not investing, just doing labor. So that's like a runner down the road, and everybody else has a car. Investors have cars, they have vehicles, they have things that are transporting their wealth faster than the person on foot. Even the slowest car is going to be faster than the fastest runner, right? Even if you're Usain Bolt and you're the fastest man on earth, Usain Bolt cannot outrun a broken down Volkswagen. So ultimately, investors, people who invest in the stock market, the reason that you see the wealth gap between the richest in America and everyone else is because most of the people that are in that first category are the ones who are investing in the stock market. So they're driving with cars, buses, airplanes, whatever, and the workers are kind of operating on foot. So ultimately, you want to get involved in the market because you want to get a vehicle that's going to help you transport your wealth to wherever you want it to go. All right, next, let's keep going. What the Black Stock Market Program can do for you, this is something you can actually get a free month on this program if you want. You just go to theblackstockmarketprogram.com. I don't know how many of you are in the program already. How many of you are in the Black Stock Market Program online? All right, it's a great program. It's better than anything you'll ever get at a university. It does have a monthly fee. I think about $89 or something like that, but you can try it for a month, 30 days, won't cost you a thing. Go in there and go through all the content, everything you want to do. If you want to stay, we invite you to stay because, the Black Business School, we're trying to do a lot of stuff, so your support is definitely important, and we're trying to convince you that we can actually teach you better than these universities can, and we won't leave you in debt. But if you don't want to stay, that's okay too. But the first month is totally free, so write the URL down, theblackstockmarketprogram.com. Feel free to sign up today, tomorrow, whenever you feel up to it. But basically, the goal is to teach you how to think like an investor. Mindset is important. Introduce you to how the stock market works. We cover terminology that every investor should know. Show you how to buy your first share of stock. Show you how your parents could have been millionaires by now. Help you understand where stock prices come from. Various ways to view wealth. How to build wealth for your family. We even have lectures, the kind of lectures that you don't hear on college campuses, which is like, things like how to build your own family bank. Because it's designed specifically for the Black community. Is this brother, he helps people get capital for their businesses. Well, that's one of the biggest problems of Black entrepreneurs is a lack of access to capital. So your family is probably like my family where we didn't have the access to the capital that we needed. Even when we were making over $1 million a year in our business, we still couldn't get the banks to even loan us small amounts of money. So it was very frustrating. So we had to be very creative and literally build our own bank. We had to literally stack our money up in a specific way, allocate our resources, creatively invest. And by doing so, we actually became better at investing than other people. Our profitability rate, for a lot of businesses, profitability ratios might be, 10, 20, 30%, something. We literally have had tons and tons of things that we've done that have gotten us 100, 200, 300% profit in the first year. So ultimately, when you learn the creative ways to figure out where the resources are, the creative ways to invest, you can become very good at it. I believe every Black family should have a bank, which is basically an endowment, a stack of resources that can be utilized to be intelligently applied toward investment endeavors and businesses in your own family. So in our family, with our family bank, we have every week, every Sunday, we get on Zoom, me and my family. Same way I've invited you guys to the Zoom meeting. Some of y'all were here for the VIP session. If you're not, if you weren't, then I want you guys to know I'm going to invite everybody to come in and meet us on Zoom. And we have family business meetings on Zoom every Sunday. And what we do is we talk about our dreams, we talk about what everybody's trying to do, we share resources, we create an economy amongst each other, and we partner on different things so that we can help everybody quit their job and everybody be successful, okay? So anyway, so there's more that the class covers, et cetera. So let's keep going. So what it doesn't do is it doesn't teach you how to pick the right stock at the right time. That is nonsense, that is silly, but there's the reason that it's gonna be hard for some people to buy into that. People that really resist the things that I might teach might be people that look at that and they say, no, that's not true, because there's a multi-billion-dollar industry built around people telling you that they can pick the right stock. And we used to laugh about it when I was in my PhD program because it's almost a little bit like witchcraft or something like that. Like people, it seems really convincing. If you don't understand how the markets work, then it's easy to believe that somebody can pick the right stock at the right time. But basically, all the studies show pretty much the same thing, that what they call market timing, picking the right stock at the right time and ducking and dodging and selling and buying and all this other stuff, that just doesn't work. All it does is cause you to lose money. And this is what the leading experts in the world pretty much say. But those aren't the guys you see on TV. The ones you see on TV are the ones with the big mouths telling you that they can help make you rich in 20 seconds. Also, the other thing I won't do in the class is the goal is not to cover complex trading strategies and instruments and things like that. We do some special topics, lectures, but we don't have sort of this rough, wild investing thing going on. Because what that does, when people talk about day trading, has anybody ever heard of day trading? Day trading is... Day trading is when you're buying and selling and buying and selling and buying and selling. And what's unfortunate about that is that day trading, a lot of people actually form gambling addictions from day trading, because it becomes gambling at that point. And ultimately what that does is that takes away my ability to present stock market investing to you as something that is of modest risk, that can be safe for everyone. I would rather teach a strategy where if everybody did the things that we talk about, then everybody can make money. Everybody wins. Day trading, some people win, some people lose, and I don't want to get into that. So we don't cover sort of the rapid fire, high risk stuff. Warren Buffett, we kind of follow philosophy similar to what he says. Warren Buffett is one of the richest people in the world. I think this year his company went up in value. I think their profit was about $65 billion or something like that. He makes more money in about a week than like most NBA players make in a year or something, even when he's not working. It's an insane amount of money. But anyway, one of the things he always said is that if you don't plan on holding a stock for at least 10 years, you shouldn't think about holding it for 10 minutes. And so Warren Buffett basically says something that's been tried and true and proven in the research, that basically if you just buy your assets and just hold them and just wait, then what happens is that your portfolio grows the way a tree grows. If I'm trying to grow a tree, I'm not going to plant the seed and then go look at it every day to see if it grew. I'm just going to plant it and then go do something else and check on it once every week or two. And then what will happen is it slowly grows over time. Wealth grows the same way a tree grows. You imagine planting a big sycamore tree. The sycamore trees are the redwoods. They're going to take, decades to grow into their full form, right? And so ultimately, wealth is very interesting because most of the equations that are used to describe how money grows are very similar to the equations used to describe how plants and trees grow. A lot of the equations we used in our finance program were actually taken from biology because wealth grows the same way as a plant. So if you understand how to grow a flower, then you understand how to grow wealth. All right, so let's keep going. The goal is to build generational wealth through systematic strategies over time, et cetera. We want to change the culture of our lives, families, and communities. And because one of the things that you want to understand about wealth as well is that a lot of wealth building is very, very cultural. It's very, very cultural, which drives your habits. And it drives the conversations that you have around the dinner table. For example, there are some families that just by nature just sit around and talk about investing. They talk about their businesses. They talk about economic ventures. A lot of families I've seen feel that talking about money is taboo. Has anybody seen that? Does anybody have a family where you think that there are relatives that kind of feel like talking about money is either just not interesting or you just don't really talk about it? Okay, how many of your families talk about money on a regular basis? Just in a productive way, like this is how we're going to build wealth, et cetera. Okay, now some of y'all didn't raise your hand at all. So let me ask you, ma'am, right there with the wristband on with the white collar on there. Now, why did you raise your hand? How would you describe your family when it comes to how you talk about wealth? Yeah, speak loud so I can hear you if you don't mind. Okay. So it sounds like a lot of the conversation might center around, you mentioned college expenses, you mentioned avoiding debt, which are very, those are good conversations. Those are necessary conversations, right? What I observe, and what I observe is that a lot of the financial conversations that I see in a lot of families, they will center around, money that has to be spent. If you're really doing well for your family, you'll talk about staying out of debt. So that's very good. Congratulations. And then also you might talk about ways to make money. How do you make money? And so where I think those conversations can be kind of tweaked a little bit and improved is, okay, if you're going to talk about making money, what you're really talking about, okay, what are our tools going to be to bring in income, right? And unfortunately, a lot of our tools center on the job you get, right? And we invest, the main investment we think about is an investment in education, which will prepare you to get a better job to make more money. And that is an adequate investment. That's an important investment to make. There's no question about it. But there are lots of other investments that can be made. There are also lots of other tools and techniques that can be utilized as well. And so I would encourage you to try to expand that, right? Expand your tool set. It's almost like a basketball player who's really good at making free throws, but then they say, okay, I'm going to now go practice some three-point shots, practice some layups, some dunks, things like that, right? So ultimately, changing the culture kind of means, sort of making sure that investing is a very, very important part of the family conversation, where you say, okay, if for every $1,000 that we get or every $100 that we get, what percentage of that money is going to go toward an investment? Because we know about the expenses, because we tend to, we'll talk about that. If there's money due that needs to be paid for something, most of my relatives that reach out to me to talk about money will usually reach out to me because they need to borrow money from me because they've got some expense that they can't pay, right? I literally had to get to the point where I started being mean to my relatives because I'm like, well, wait a minute, your butt ain't never around when I'm offering to teach you an investment class or let you in for free because you're my family, but you're showing up asking me to borrow money so you can give that money back to that white man who's been charging you rent for the last 10 years. I'm not doing that anymore, right? And so the issue is that you have a lot of interesting conversations that occur where money comes up, but it usually comes up in a very reactionary sort of way. Not your family, ma'am, right? Because I love what you're doing with your kids, but it comes up in a way where it's sort of like, we need money because we have this expense, because we haven't planned to have a way to pay for these expenses over time. And the only reason we're talking about it right now is because we need the money right now. But if we had plenty of money in our pocket, we don't want, that's the time when you talk about money, is when you got money in your pocket. So you get your tax refund check. Are you having a conversation about investing? Are you having a conversation on how you can follow one of the most important rules of money, which is to keep your money? And then the next important rule is to not just keep your money, but to grow your money. Do you have those conversations? So what I usually will see is that, and I think about some of my most trifling relatives, and I love them, but they trifling. When they get that tax refund, or when they got that paycheck, or when they're doing well, the conversations about money usually center around like what I'm about to buy or whatever it is, right? They don't really want to hear anything about investing. But then when the money runs out, and the rent is due, and you're calling me to tell me you need to borrow money to pay your rent, but you're wearing a $250 hair weave, then that's when, I become very confused, right? So I think that, and I'm not talking about any of your families per se. I don't know. All of us have the family toxicity when it comes to money, but I encourage you to kind of think about that culture and how this conversation happens in your own family. So let's keep going. All right. So if you don't think that wealth is psychological and cultural, you're wrong. I would take a broke person with an investor's mentality over a rich person with a spender's mentality any day of the week, because it's almost like betting on a horse race or race between two people, and the fat person is 100 yards ahead, but the person that's behind in the race is an Olympic athlete. I'm gonna bet on the Olympic athlete before I bet on the fat guy any day of the week. All right, so let's keep going. So before you begin investing heavily, make sure you do these things. Make sure you create a budget. You have to budget to know where your money's going. Make sure you have adequate life insurance. Life insurance is both an opportunity to build a lot of wealth for the next generation. It's also a missed opportunity because a lot of people use that as an opportunity to go into debt because they didn't plan for their death. You have to have conversations about death. It's very strange that people are afraid to talk about death. Almost like talking about it means it's going to increase the chances it's going to happen. And so what you're basically doing is you're facing the inevitability of death by simply putting your head in the sand. And then when you're forced to confront the reality of death, then you have a bunch of kids sitting in front of the church begging the church to pay for their daddy's funeral because he didn't take the time to get life insurance, which might have cost him $20 a month or whatever. Get an emergency fund with 4 to 6 months of living expenses, expenses for emergency travel, funerals, illnesses, etc. High copay hospital visits. A good way to go into debt in America, there's 2 big ways you can go into debt. One is college expenses, because universities are overpriced, extensively overpriced. And 2 is if you get sick, because our medical system is really screwed up. Most expensive in the world, but it's not among the best in the world. It's about 34th or 35th, right behind Costa Rica in terms of quality, right? So you want to be cautious of that. Anyway, moving on. Large or expected home repairs, etc. You want to get rid of your high-interest credit card debt first. Credit card debt should be paid off before you get too deeply invested in the stock market, because paying off credit card debt is a sure win. The stock market is some years you'll win, some years you'll lose. But if you have a credit card where you're already paying whatever percent interest, 5, 10, 15, 20%, whatever percentage you're paying, well, by paying down that credit card debt, you're guaranteed to be saving, that 15% or that 10% or whatever you're paying on your card, right? The stock market may or may not give you a 10% return this year, but your credit card is definitely going to charge you that 10% if you leave that balance on there. So I would almost think of my first step into investing to attack credit card debt as much as I could, to kind of reduce that as much as possible. Or you could do kind of a parallel approach. Some people do that. All right, so money saved is money earned, and that's the reason I want you to pay off your credit card debt as much of it as you can. That's become a serious problem for people. What I've seen a lot with millennials is that I don't know if I mentioned this earlier. I'll mention it again for some of you that weren't here. The average millennial is expected to die in debt. The average person between, say, the age of 22 and 34 is expected to actually die with a negative net worth, right? So what you want to sort of look at that with that statistic, that stat ain't going to change, because I can't change the whole world. I can't get everybody on the planet to change how they're doing whatever. The forces that brainwash people into how they spend are too great for that. But what you can do is get off of that bus, right? So the bus is headed off the cliff. You don't have to ride that bus. You can get off the bus and go in the other direction. And so what I do is I try to dissect, like, what are the reasons that the average millennial is expected to die in debt? Well, a lot of it is because, number one, they're starting off with a lot of student loan debt, too much to repay. Now, the thing about debt is that when you take on debt, debt is not always a bad thing, but you should be able to repay the debt with whatever it is that you got the debt for in the first place. So if you start a business, it's okay to go into debt if you have to. If you borrow $50,000 so you can go make a couple $100,000, then that's a good move, smart move. Debt is a good decision in that case. But what's happening with college students is they're borrowing $70,000 or $80,000 to get a job that pays them $35,000 or $40,000, and they live in a country where people can't even save up $1,000, $2,000 for an emergency. So if you can't even save up $1,000 for an emergency, I'm not sure what would lead anybody to think they can repay $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 in debt. In fact, in our community, I see a lot of people who are $60,000 in debt and didn't even finish school. That's really a fascinating kind of thing I'm observing here. And so ultimately, if you want to get off that train, you have to think about creative ways to avoid that college debt or to knock it out, or at least, like I think somebody asked me, they said, well, Dr. Boyce, do you think that our kids shouldn't go to college? I said, no, that's not true. I would never say that. My first book I actually wrote was called Everything You Ever Want to Know About College, because I think college can be a beneficial thing. But I said when they go to college, you got to keep the costs down as much as possible. You know, pick a state school. You don't have to do that fancy private school across the country. Also, make sure your child picks a major that's going to help them make enough money to repay their debt. You know, you can't go borrow $100,000 to get a degree in art history. That's a really, I'm not going to say it's a bad move in terms of the quality of what you're going to learn. I mean, learning is beautiful, but my God, you borrowed $100,000 to learn art history. I don't really know how that works from a financial standpoint. You know, it doesn't work. It works if you're rich, but it doesn't work if you're if you come from a working class family. And in fact, you know, art history and stuff like that, that's the kind of stuff you can actually learn on the internet. There are thousands and thousands of professors that used to teach at universities like me who teach on the internet. So why not go take an art history class online and read things online? Why would you go spend $100,000 to get a degree in art history? So pick a field that's going to help you make enough money to create enough of an economic engine to help you conquer the debt. I said also, make sure your child, when they go to college, that they are a serious student. I taught on college campuses for 25 years, and the vast majority of the students I saw were on campus getting into all kinds of stupid stuff, just wasting time. I mean, they literally would spend more time preparing for a step show than they would spend preparing for an exam. And that is backward. That's crazy. That doesn't make any sense. And it's sad that's very popular. It's not like we're talking about a couple of extreme people. We're talking about the masses of people. And then they wonder why they're not prepared to compete in the world. Well, because you spent 4 years in college and you didn't study. Right? So ultimately, serious student, serious major, low-cost school, and then if you have young children, the best investment you can make when it comes to dealing with the educational expense or long-term economic benefit is to get them a tutor. Every child should get a tutor. I don't care if your child's at the top of their class. If they're doing 8th grade work and they're only 10 years old, have them do 9th grade work. If they master 9th grade work, have them do 10th grade work. Because you live in a competitive society where intellectually, you know, that child has to be a warrior competing against all these people from China, India, and Asia who are going to be trying to take jobs from them and opportunities from them. You want to make sure that they're trained at the absolute highest levels. We already do that in basketball and football. We generate the best athletes on the planet, the best entertainers on the planet. We also need to produce the best scholars on the planet. Okay, and the reason that you want to invest that little bit of money, it might cost you $100 a month, $200 a month to get that tutor, is because by doing that, what you're doing is you're also positioning your child to get scholarships. They're going to have the highest grades, they're going to have the highest test scores, so that, you know, school that might cost them $50,000, $60,000 a year might be free, which saves them $250,000 and keeps them out of debt. So invest in the tutor so your kids can get ahead. Don't do what everybody else is doing. Next, before you start investing, ask yourselves, what are your goals? Why are you doing this? A lot of people may have different goals. Their goal may be planning for retirement. Most Americans are not prepared for retirement. In the next 20 years or so, you're going to see a huge retirement crisis. You're going to see millions and millions and millions of senior citizens who cannot afford to live, who are stuck. Because if you go to most of these people who are they're now in their 50s maybe. A lot of them, if you look in their bank account and you look at where their retirement portfolio is right now compared to where it's supposed to be, they're way, way, way behind. And I think that, I don't know if they think that Jesus is going to come and fix it between now and then or what, but they're just not ready. So retirement is a good reason to start investing because most Americans are not prepared for retirement. Paying for college, buying a home, starting a business, long-term financial security. When I think about investing, I always think about, stacking my resources as almost like a defense mechanism, almost like it's like a bunker, like it's an economic bunker. And the reason I think about it that way is because if I don't have that economic security, then, I remember thinking, God, if I don't secure myself economically, I'm going to end up having to go out here and beg for resources. I'm going to go out here and have to beg for a job. I'm about to go out here and, do things I don't want to do. So when I got money, it literally in my mind was almost like a life or death thing. I need to save and plan and protect so that I can have economic security and I can make sure that I can be happy. Because money is the key to happiness. Money is deeply connected to happiness. If you don't think money is one of the keys to happiness, then just look at how unhappy people are when they have financial problems. Right? Look at how economic stress causes people to make very bad decisions, put themselves in bad situations, whatever it is. A lot of little girls end up on the pole, brothers end up on the corner slinging, end up in prison getting raped, all this over money. So money can be the key to happiness or unhappiness if it's used in the right way. So don't think that money and happiness are not connected. They're deeply connected. And in fact, they're not just connected to the happiness, they're also connected to the other holy grail, which is really just freedom. Freedom means the ability to kind of do whatever you want to do. And the thing about it is that if you don't have economic strength, it's very, very difficult to have freedom because you can't protect your freedom. You go to work every day, you're working for somebody, and you decide that you want to tell your boss Black Lives Matter, and you find out that you get fired afterward. Well, that, you can be upset about it and it's wrong, but the fact of the matter is that you're in his economic house. And you're in somebody else's economic house, then they're going to make the rules. The world is not this free, egalitarian democracy. It's a place where money is a source of power. So the best way to prepare yourselves and your children to have power is to help prepare yourselves and your children to understand money. Okay? So anyway, let me keep going. All right, so 3 things you need from your emergency fund is you don't want it to be risky, you want it to be liquid, and you want it to be easily accessible. What does this mean? Little to no risk kind of means that basically you have your money in a place, your emergency fund. This is your money that you need in case something goes wrong. This is another thing you have as you're preparing to invest in the stock market. This emergency fund should be little to no risk, meaning that it's going to stay about the same value no matter what. So money market funds, treasury bills, things like that, CDs, a savings account, those are low risk options, but you don't want to put too much of your money in a savings account because what happens is that your money is losing value every second that you leave it there and you're not letting it grow. If you just save, and you don't invest, then what's happening is that your money is literally dropping in value because of inflation every year. Also, you're missing the opportunity for your money to grow. Because one of the rules of investing is that capital should be made to be productive. It should be put to its best available use. Do you guys need me? Oh, okay. I'll make sure they was all right because they was kind of standing over here. All right. So you don't want a lot of risk. You want it to be liquid. Liquidity is just like liquid. Like you think about liquid, like water, right? Liquidity is kind of basically how quickly something can be turned into cash, right? So I'll give you an example of something that's not liquid. A house. A house is not very liquid because I could sell my house, in 5 minutes, but I probably couldn't get the full value for it. Like, so let's say I had $1 million house and I had to sell it in 5 minutes and I had to sell it to the people in this room and you can only pay for it with the cash that's in your pocket or in your bank account. Well, the most I'm gonna get for this house might be 2 cents. It might be maybe somebody in here might have 50,000 in their account or something like that. But I'm not gonna get the whole million most likely because you may not even want the person with the most money may not even want the house, right? Whereas something like stocks and bonds and CDs and stuff like that, they tend to be pretty liquid. You can go sell it right away and get cash. The thing about the stock market, the reason it's not the most liquid investment is because the prices go up and down, up and down, up and down. And so you don't want to be forced to sell at a time when the market's down because you're not going to get full value. So basically assets that are considered to be super liquid are things like the CDs and the treasury bills and stuff like that, and also easily accessible. So you want to be able to get your money within 24 hours. That's really important if it's an emergency fund. Now, the pros of being an investor versus just saving, I'll go through that really quickly. Albert Einstein said compound interest is the most powerful force in the universe. And basically what that was saying was that Einstein, who was one of the most brilliant human beings, ever, a little bit behind guys like Dr. Claude Anderson, Einstein basically said that he was really fascinated with how, a poor person could grow into a rich person pretty quickly just by investing consistently. He didn't understand it. It just seemed kind of fascinating to him. Also, investors get to earn passive income, money that earns more money. You see, that's the concept of financial fertility that I'll talk about you about in a second. Financial fertility basically means that your assets and your wealth should be fertile, meaning that your dollar bills are supposed to give birth to baby dollar bills and multiply. Next, you can start a family business with those you care about. That's the most, if you ever want to have fun, go into business with your relatives. I work with all my family. I got 2 of my kids here. My daughter, works with me all the time. My mama works for me. My whole family, my brother is the president of our company. It is great because I get to know a lot more about my brother by working with him every day. My daughter works with me all the time. My mama works for me. My whole family, my brother is the president of our company. Economic health and yourself and family, your community. I get to know a lot more about my brother by working with him every day. The downside of being an investor is that, at least in the beginning, it's not like a steady paycheck. So you have to kind of shift the mindset. You can't let the risk kind of scare you too much. In the beginning, as an investor, the money can kind of flow in chunks, but you do something that we call income smoothing, which is where you basically make sure that, almost like harvesting crops. You make sure that when you've got an abundance, that you're saving, you're holding it back, so you're storing your nuts for the winter. So when it gets cold, like anybody watch Game of Thrones, when they keep saying winter is coming, I love that show, it's a great show. So they always say winter is coming, so that means like, okay, times are good now, but winter's coming, you must prepare for winter. So ultimately, an entrepreneur or an investor is a person that learns that winter is always coming. So they always say winter is coming. So that means like, okay, times are good now, but winter's coming. We must prepare for winter. So lose money for a while. Or an investor is a person that learns that winter is always coming. How good they are, that's the time that you stack your arsenal up so you get ready for the one time it's up. You might actually lose money for a while. Sometimes over a prolonged period of time. It requires planning, work, and creativity. For a job, people just tell you what to do, whereas being an investor means you can make the world into what you want it to be. But the reason it's important just get a circle of people that can supplement what you know. So when I'm looking to bring people into my company or people that we hire or people that into our executive team, I'm not looking for people who are just like me. I don't need, the world is already messed up enough with one Boyce Watkins. We don't need 2 or 3 Boyce Watkins is all working together because we just want to choke each other. So instead what I do is I look for people that have skill sets that supplement what I do or what I think. So for example, I'm not a detail-oriented person, but my accountant is very detail-oriented. So she provides something that I don't do myself. So I don't have to worry about it when I team are working together.
So for example, I'm not a detail-oriented person, but my accountant is very
I take a lot of risks.
So she provides something that
I don't do myself. Him up.
So I don't have to worry about it.
I make a mess, he cleans it up. Whatever it is, and it works. It works, right? So look for people that supplement what you can do.
He slows me down.
I was looking for somebody that was,
I make a mess, he cleans it up.
very, very mean.
Whatever it is, and it works. It works, right? So look for people that supplement what you can do.
I'm too nice.
I was looking for somebody that was, my manager is very, very mean.
I'm ripped off, and I don't know why. She's like, you got ripped off because you should have trusted that son of a bitch. But that's how she thinks, right? So she pulls me, she warns me about the risk that I may not see, but I also soften her position a little bit and say, okay,
when you got ripped off,
you got to bite his leg off,
right?
So ultimately, that's what you want. You want people around you that can help
warns me about the risk that I may not see, but I also soften her
position. And the other thing too is that you might become what I call a wealthy broke person. See, a wealthy broke person could be a person who has a lot of wealth, but it's not liquid. They have a lot of wealth, but it's not easily converted into cash. And it's okay to be in that position sometimes. Because basically, that person who
has a lot of wealth, but it's not liquid wealth.
If somebody has a better understanding of what wealth is anyway. If you want to find somebody who doesn't understand wealth, you look for that person who maybe sees a rapper with a bunch of cash and assumes that the rapper must be rich because he's a rich. Or Lil Wayne spent $50,000 on a new grill, so he must be doing good. And that's all they think. They're like, oh, of course he's doing good. Look at all that cash he's got. So that's how rappers communicate how much money they have.
Lil Wayne spent
but a person who understands wealth knows that wealth in many cases is not.
And that's all the thing. They're like, oh, of course he's doing good. Look at all that cash he's got. So that's why rappers.
And there are people with very little cash who are extremely wealthy. So a wealthy broke person might be somebody who's put a lot of their money into their business, a lot of money into their investments, a lot of money into their real estate, and their money's out working for them. And it appears that they don't have a lot of money because they don't have a lot of cash.
or a lot of liquidity, but they're actually doing quite well. So most of you, when you start investing and you become business owners, things like that, you're going to have those periods where you're going to feel like a wealthy broker. So anyway, so there's a difference between being a paper millionaire and a cash money millionaire. Self-made millionaire can't be as flashy as paycheck millionaire. A paycheck millionaire is maybe like an athlete, someone who makes a lot of money because they get a check to play basketball or whatever. And they don't really understand the mechanics of actually truly building economic empires. In fact, if most athletes were trained on even the very basics,
and they don't really understand the mechanics of actually
literally create at least $500 billion in wealth for all the NBA players out there already. Maybe $1 trillion in wealth over the next 5 to 10 years. That's how much money they throw away because many of them unfortunately only train to spend money. And it's very it's unfortunate because when you're making millions of dollars, that's capital. That's how much money they throw away because and so if you have capital at the level of a corporation that you're spending on a consumer like a factory worker, then millions of dollars are wasting that's capital. That's like the level of corporate capital. All right, so anyway, let's go. So here's a stat I want to show you guys on stock market participation. This is the percentage of U.S. adults that invest in the stock market. You see the number hovered between 99 and 08, between 58% the lowest up to 65%. So it looks like it was in the 60s in most years, 67% of Americans participate in the stock market. Most of that is through 401ks, IRAs, investment plans at work. And then around here is where you saw the crash, and you saw that the market participation rate just kind of dropped to 52, boom, lower than it's been, in a couple of decades. And it's interesting, so it hit the peak because the market was doing so well. It's a little bit like the stock market crash in 1999, where right before the crash, everybody was investing, everybody was excited about it. Then there's the crash, and it fell off. So here you saw this big drop. Black people were disproportionately affected. So if this number here is 52,
right before
all
the crash,
Americans,
everybody was investing, everybody was excited about it. Then there's the crash, and it kind of fell off.
And the problem with this is that a lot of wealth was lost. John Rogers from Ariel Capital Management right here in Chicago wrote a brilliant article where he basically said that when black folks ran away from the stock market around this time period, he said you probably gave away well over $1 trillion.
John Rogers from Ariel Capital Management right here in
would have been made
Chicago
if you maintain your existing stock market investment ratio. And so what we really have to do is kind of move beyond this idea that investing is complicated or that stock market investment that you have to be smart or highly educated to do it. And kind of help people see it as something that is not just for the elite, it's for everybody. So here's what Warren Buffett says about being rich. He says, I'll read the quote here. He says, I will tell you how to become rich. Close the book. He says, be fearful when others are greedy, be greedy when others are fearful. So basically what he says is don't follow everybody. Kind of do the opposite of everybody. And what happens is that you have what they call market overreaction. This is what I wrote my dissertation on when I was in school. Market overreaction is basically saying when investors get happy and feeling good about the market, they tend to overreact. They tend to overpay the stock. They push the prices way too high. But then when they get scared, they get all emotional and scared, and they start to pull the prices way down. Lower than they should, because everybody's traumatized from fighting and everything else.
But then when they get scared, they get all emotional and scared.
When people overreact,
they start to pull the prices way
down. Goes in and starts
lower than they should be.
Right? Because everybody acts like because it's raining on Tuesday that the sun will never come out again. That's the equivalent. People see when the market goes down, they run away forever, which is a permanent solution.
Because everybody acts like because it's raining on Tuesday that the sun will never come out again.
If it started raining outside, that's the equivalent. I'm never going to come outside.
People see when the market goes down, they run away forever.
So smart people say, okay, well, since you're never going to come outside, then I'll just take your car and, you won't need it, you're going to be in the house forever, right? So Warren Buffett comes along and says, you're scared, to invest, you let the price drop to below what it's truly worth. Well, let me come buy it. Let me go to Detroit and buy a bunch of houses, because everybody thinks Detroit is never going to recover. It's this $5,000 house is always going to be worth $5,000. Warren Buffett will go in and buy 1,000 of them and just hold it and wait until the values go up.
Because everybody thinks
of it,
Detroit is never going to recover.
So basically,
and this
the opposite,
$5,000 house
on
is
the other
always
side,
going to be
right,
worth
when everybody is
$5,000
going crazy and overpaying for stuff,
Warren
Warren
Buffett
Buffett
tends
tends
to
to
not
not want to
just
invest.
hold
He
it,
starts
just wait
selling
until the
to
value
the
go up.
suckers because
And
everybody's
he says, be
overpaying
greedy
for
when others are
things,
fearful.
and he doesn't want to be
So
a part of
basically,
that.
the opposite, on the
Basically,
other
the
side, right?
market
When
has been
everybody
on
is
the
going
tear since
crazy and
Obama got
overpaying for
elected.
stuff, Warren
It's
Buffett
risen
tends to
actually
not
faster
want to
under
invest. He
President
starts
Trump.
selling to the
I'm not
suckers
really
because everybody
concerned about
overpaid
losing
for
the White
things,
House
and he doesn't
so
want to be a
much.
part of that.
I tend to be of the
Basically,
camp
the
that
market
believes that
has
Trump
been
is
on
not
a
qualified
tear
to be
since Obama
president.
got elected. It's risen
Right,
actually faster
but
under
that
President Trump.
doesn't,
I'm not really concerned about who's in
that's
the
not
White
something I
House
think a whole lot
so
about. I
much.
just,
I'm
I'm
really
really
I
focused
tend
on
to
my
be of the
family,
camp
focused
that
on my
believes that Trump
community,
is not qualified to be
and I'm not
president.
really focused
But
on the emotionality of,
right,
who
but that
happens in the White House.
doesn't,
Because both Trump and Obama drew,
that's
their
not something I think
presidencies
a
drew
whole
a
lot
lot of
about. I
emotion
just,
out of black
I'm
folks.
really focused
The
on my
next
family,
president
focused
will
on
be
my
emotional
community,
in a good way or a
and I'm
bad
not
way.
really focused on the emotionality
Those who are
of,
building the wealth are the people
who
who
happens in the
aren't
White
caught up
House.
in the
Because
emotionality
both Trump and
of it all. They
Obama
just
drew,
look at the
their
numbers. So
presidencies
here,
drew a lot of
you see
emotions out
right
of black
here,
folks.
the
The
market
next
is as low as
president will be
8,000. This is
emotional,
the
either in a
Dow
good way
Jones
or a bad
Industrial
way.
Average. So you see,
Those who are building the wealth are
this
the
is all
people
the
who
Obama
aren't caught up in the
presidency. This
emotionality
is part
of
one,
it all. They just look at the
part
funny
two,
news. So here,
and then Trump
you
comes
see
in.
right here,
And now
the
look at
market
this.
was as
This
low
chart
as
is
8,000. This is
it
the
has been
Dow Jones
updated
Industrial
for
Average.
about
So
a
you see,
year.
and
And
this
you
is
see
all the
even
Obama
here it's at
presidency.
18,000.
This is part
Anybody know
one,
where the Dow Jones Industrial
part
Average is
two,
right now?
and then Trump comes in. And now look at this. This chart isn't it hasn't been updated
Right,
for
but what
about
approximately
a year.
what is it? It's over
And you see
25,000.
even here it's at 18,000.
Over 25,000.
Anybody know where the Dow
So
Jones
then even this
Industrial Average is right now?
18,000, this would be remarkable enough. But actually, since this time of the last
Right,
couple
but
of
what
years, it's gone up
approximately
even
what
further.
is
So I got to
it's over
update this
25,000.
2016,
Over 25,000.
2017, 2018.
So
But
then even this
basically
18,000,
what
this
this
would
is
be
saying
remarkable
is
enough.
that
But
while
actually,
everybody's
since
hooting and
this
hollering
time
about,
of the last couple of years, it's
whatever
gone up even
social
further. So I got to
activist
update this
program that
here,
they're into,
2016,
there are
2017,
people that are just
2018.
quietly building wealth,
But
quietly making
basically
money.
what this is saying
And I think
is
that's really
that while
something
everybody
that you might want to think
hollering
about.
about,
That's
you know,
that's how I process
whatever
that.
social
All right, so
activist program
what is
that
an
they're
asset
into,
class? Let's talk
you know,
about
there are
what
people
that
that
is.
just
So
quietly
an
building
asset
wealth,
class
quietly making
is
money.
kind of how you want to think
And
about
and I
investing.
think that's
You don't
really
want to get caught
something
up
that you
too
might want
much
to think
in
about.
one
That's
particular
what
investment.
that's
You know,
how
a lot of
process
us, I think some
All right, so what is an
some
asset
stocks
class?
as
Let's talk
well.
about
Someone
what that
mentioned
is.
said,
So
"Well, I bought some
an
stock
asset
in a
class
medical company and I
is
made
kind of
this
how you
much
want to
money."
think about
And
investing.
I think that's
You
really
don't
good. I
want
think
to
it's
get
a great
caught up
start.
too much
But
in
the
one
biggest thing you
particular
want to do when it
investment.
comes
You
to
know, a lot of
investing is you
I
don't want
think
to think about
somebody, a couple
investing
of you
as
mentioned some
I'm
stocks you
going to
bought.
go
I
and
think
pick
somebody mentioned said, "Oh, I
that
bought some
company,
stock in a medical
right?
company and I made
Or
this much money."
like a racehorse.
And I think that's
Like
really good. I think
there
it's
are
a
people
great
that
start.
bet on
But
one
the
horse
biggest
and
thing
hope
you
that
want to do
horse
when it
wins.
comes to investing
Then
is
there
you
are
don't want
people
to
who
think
set
about
up
investing
systems where
as
they're betting on all the
I'm
horses.
going to go and
So no
pick
matter who wins, they
that
always
company.
win. Like
Right?
Don King,
Or, you know,
when he
like
was
a race
a
horse.
boxing
You know, like
promoter,
there are people
he
that
didn't
bet
get behind
on
one
one
fighter
horse
and
and
hope that
hope
that
that
fighter
horse
won.
wins.
He
Then
would
there
have
are
a big
people who
fight
set up
and
systems where they're betting
make
on all
money
the
off both
horses.
of them.
So no matter
Right?
who wins, they always win. Like
Another
Don
example,
King, when he was a boxing promoter, he didn't get behind one fighter and hope that that fighter won. He would have a big
I
fight
saw these two
and
rappers on the
make money
internet,
off both of them.
fighting on Instagram.
Right?
And it was some
Another
outrageous stuff.
example.
One guy's like,
Oh gosh,
"Man,
it's
boy, I'm gonna kill you," whatever. And the other one's like, "Yeah,
this
you
is
gonna
it.
get it, da, da, da," right?
So,
They going
I
back
saw
and
these two
forth.
rappers on the
I like
internet,
a couple of
fighting
coons,
on
just embarrassing.
Instagram. And it was
the
some
whole
ridiculous
embarrassing
stuff.
their
You know, one
families
guy
and all
like,
this.
man,
And I was asking,
you know, whatever. The other
who
like,
runs a big hip hop site. I said,
right? They
"So
going
what
back
do you
and
think about
forth.
that? Like that beef
I like a
sounds
couple of
kinda dangerous.
coons,
Like
just
what's going on with
embarrassing.
that?" He said, "Oh, it ain't
You know,
really
the
gonna
whole
get too
embarrassing
bad."
their families and all
Yeah, he
this.
said, "Oh, because the same
I
Jewish company, they manage both of those guys. So they're not going. They're only letting the beef go so far so they can sell more records, but they're not going to let nobody get killed because then they start losing money, right? And that's how smart people play that game. So ultimately, when you think about investing, you want to invest in terms of classes of assets. Think of it in broad groups. Broad groups means that you are investing in multiple things, which means you have diversification, which means your money's spread out. You're not waiting for one stock to do well. You kind of own a lot of different things, you know. And so, like if you ask me what stocks I own, I can't really tell you. Like if you say, "Hey, Boyce, do you own any Disney?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think it's in there somewhere." Do you own Tesla? Yeah, it's in there somewhere.
somewhere. Do you own any Walmart shares? Yeah, I probably bought some Walmart at some point. I probably just, on a Friday night, just decided I want to add Walmart to the portfolio. Hey, Boyce, do you own Ford? Yeah, I think I do. I probably own at least a few shares of Ford. Like, that's literally how I would describe mine, because I don't know what I own. I just buy different things. You diversify. So, but I can tell you what percentage of my investments are in stocks. I can tell you what percentage of my investments are in crypto, what percentage is in bonds, what percentage is in my business, what percentage is in real estate. I can tell you that. I can tell you in terms of classes. See, stocks is an asset class. Bonds are an asset class, right? Real estate is an asset class. And so whenever I want to adjust What I do is I say, I'm kind of over-invested in my business. I need to take some money out of the business and put some money into real estate in case something goes wrong with the business. You follow me? So you want to think about classes. Classes are groups of assets that exhibit similar characteristics and operate within the same market. So classes of assets. What's an asset? Well, yeah, stocks are an asset, but the same investing dynamics that apply to stocks and bonds can also be applied to the Jewish guy who's managing rappers. He might think about all his rappers, each of them almost like a stock, right? I don't know which rapper is going to be popular this year. I don't know which one is going to end up going to jail. I don't know which one is going to make a hit record. So I'm going to invest a little bit in this one. But I bet you that same Jewish guy who owns those two rappers who are in this beef, I bet he also owns some real estate. I'm sure he also has other businesses. And so ultimately, when you think about major asset classes, these are some quick examples. Stocks, bonds, real estate, commodities. These are quite popular, but you can go even beyond that. It's not just sort of a stock and bond conversation. It actually goes into anything that you put your money into that can generate additional income for you in the future. So what is financial fertility? Financial fertility is the method of growing your money consistently over time. You want your dollars to be fertile. So when you think about I'm going to answer questions at the end, brother. When you think about the mindset of an investor is a person who just says, okay, I got some money now. My first instinct is not going to be to spend that money. Sometimes you have to spend in order to, live and do what you got to do. But my primary instinct is, how do I take this $1,000 I got and how do I turn it into something that's going to generate me $1,000 a year or $1,000 a month for the rest of my life? Or at the very least, how do I at least take this $1,000 and make sure I have something to show for it in the future, right? So, because here's the thing, here's what's interesting, fascinating to me. A lot of people won't invest in the stock market because they're afraid of losing a little bit of money. They're afraid that if I buy $1,000 worth of stock, the market will crash, and my $1,000 worth of stock will be worth $600, in the future, right? That's what they're thinking. That's an illusion, though. It's never happened in the history of the entire stock market. There's never been a time where the market went down and never came back up. There's never been a time where that's happened, ever, right? So, but let's assume that they have this fear and for whatever reason. So they're afraid that if I invest this $1,000 in the stock market, something bad's going to happen, and it's only going to be worth $600 5 years from now. Well, I want you to ask yourself this question, though. Most of us have received tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars in the course of, let's say, the last 20 years. If you've been working 20 years and you make $50,000 a year, then, you've made close to $1 million or at least several $100,000, right? Can you tell me where most of that money went? Like, can you go back to the year, 2006 and think about a time when you got $1,000 and tell me where that money is right now? How much of that money do you have? In fact, if you spent it all, then you probably don't even still own the thing that you bought with that money, right? So ultimately, investing can go good or bad, but spending literally is damn near the worst investment you can make, because that's how you guarantee that the value of your investment drops from whatever it was to 0%, that it's going to drop to negative 100%. So ultimately, when you think about money, the key idea of thinking as an investor is to always realize that your money can either live or grow, or it can die either a fast death or a slow death. A fast death to your money is when you go out and you just spend it all. If you just spend it, then it is gone, then that's a fast death. If a slow death for your money is when you don't invest it at all and it just kind of whittles away and it drops in value over time because you didn't plan it so that it would grow. So ultimately, investors are big on the concept of financial fertility. They're either seeking ways to hold their money, or they're seeking ways to invest the money so it'll grow slowly. And the best investors, which is what your children are going to be, because you're going to teach them this, I hope, is they're going to actually be smart enough to be able to create economic engines. So that child will see $10,000 and see something totally different from another child. So two people can be presented with $10,000. One person says, oh, shoot, look at this money. I can go and I can buy Gucci. I can go buy some Jordans. I can take that money. I can go on a vacation. I can buy me a new car, right? They're thinking about ways to kind of whittle away at this money until it's gone. An economically intelligent child sees that same $10,000 and says, oh, I can finally put that money into that business I've been looking to start. And that $10,000 turns into $10,000 a year, maybe $10,000 a month. I've seen children take $10,000 and build businesses that literally have them making more money than most adults at the age of 13, 14 years old. So anyway, let's keep going. All right, so an investor always thinks about ways to use what he's got to get what he wants. So the question you must always ask about your money is your money growing, dying, or disappearing? Like, what is your money doing? So some basic rules of investing are: one, diversify. Never put all your eggs in one basket. Never spend your time obsessing over one investment. In fact, even if you have a business that's making good money, remember, you're under-diversified. The first thing you want to do is take some of that money out, put it into other areas so that you can get rid of the economic vulnerability. A lot of people talk a lot about how much money they make, but they don't think much about economic security. So, for example, if you have a job and you're making all your money from that one job, you are economically vulnerable, especially if you don't have a lot of money in savings, a lot of money in investments, other streams of income. So what a person would do is, if they have a job that's paying them good money, they're going to start thinking about security. Security is that second level, that second layer that people don't process. And I don't know if we ever get to a point where everybody thinks about that second layer. I truly believe, honestly, that in this world, there are just some people who are going to be more insightful than others. There are people that are going to see the risk sooner than other people will see it. But ultimately, what happens is that risk is always there, but there are some people who only react to the risk when it's realized, when the chickens come home to roost, when something bad happens, you lose that job that was paying you $40 an hour, and now you're stuck. Now you have no savings, you were living paycheck to paycheck, you had nothing to fall back on. But then there are smarter people who can do what I call a stress test. Like banks do this with their portfolios. Banks will do a stress test to say, okay, we're making money from here, here, and here. What happens if all this money's cut off? Are we going to be okay? The answer is no. Well, what can we do to make sure that we're going to be okay if all that money gets cut off? With our business, for example, we're always doing stress tests. I'm always saying to my team, like, okay, well, what happens if this money's good? And it's great that we made money over here, but what happens if this money gets cut off? Are we safe in case something goes wrong? So you always want to kind of do a stress test, and diversification is that first step. So let's say that you have a job, you're making good money, you want to be economically secure. Well, the things you want to think about are: one, I'm going to take this money, I'm going to save as much as I can so that I can have something to fall back on my emergency fund. Two, I'm going to diversify and allocate this money toward various investments that will not just help me keep my money, but will allow my money to grow in other ways. Three, I'm going to figure out how to make other streams of income. For some people, it might be as simple as braiding hair on the weekends. For other people, it might be joining an investment club where you're talking about business ideas and you can give people small amounts of your savings to help get the business off the ground and get substantial percentages of ownership or whatever, so you can generate other streams of income. A person who has savings, other investments, and other streams of income is going to be much more financially secure than a person who's getting all their income from one job or trying to live paycheck to paycheck. So anyway, let's keep going. Consistency is very important. Dollar cost averaging rules today. Dollar cost averaging means, it's very basic. All it pretty much means is set your investing on autopilot. That means auto deduct. Constantly have your money coming out every week. So you get an app like Acorn Stash or Robinhood. I'll tell you about those apps in a minute. You can have automatic settings where every week it will take out a certain amount of money. I don't care if it's $1 a month, whatever it is, just pick a number and just be consistent with it, and then set it and forget it. But don't pick $1 a month, because especially if you're spending more than $1 a month on something stupid. I'm not telling you not to spend your money on stupid stuff. We all spend our money on stupid stuff. I spend my money on stupid stuff all the time. But I will never spend more money on stupid stuff than I spend on intelligent stuff. So it's like good cholesterol and balances with the bad cholesterol. Well, the smart stuff must balance the stupid stuff. So what you might do is pick yourself a simple benchmark. You might say, well, every time I go to get my hair done, which isn't really stupid. I know hair is very important. I'm just jealous because I ain't got no hair. But every time I go, whatever I spend at the hair salon, I'm going to make sure I invest the same amount. Or if I go to the movies and when I go see the Black Panther, I'm going to buy the same amount in Disney stock. Every time I buy a pair of Jordans, I'm going to spend the same amount buying some stock in Nike and other companies so that I can at least not feel so guilty about the money that I just spent doing whatever I'm going to do. So find something that you can do as a benchmark. If your car note is $400 a month, you must ask yourself, why would I ever put more money into a car note than I put into investing for my future? Find a way to balance the two. So challenge yourself. The same amount I put into my car note, I'm going to put that much in my stock portfolio. That way Dr. Boyce will be off my back. All right. Think long-term, never short-term. I think that's very important. Long-term thinkers tend to get all the wealth in this country, and it is easy for them because most of the country is trained to think very short-term. So ultimately, in fact, Warren Buffett has described, and he accurately so, that they're basically investing as kind of a wealth transfer from short-sighted people to long-term people with a long-term vision. That's all it is. It's them handing money to the people that have patience, people that are making the long-term investments. So you want to be long-term, not short-term. The last piece is what I call invest like a monkey. Now, what is that? Has anybody heard my monkey story before? All right. I love this story, and so even if everybody heard it, I would tell it again because it's something that I think captures the essence of all of this. It helps fully explain why I'm very confused that there are so many of us who feel that we can't invest. There was a guy named Burton Malkiel who wanted to prove something in the lab. It was this theory called the efficient markets hypothesis. Now, long story short, the efficient markets hypothesis basically says that the stock market, the prices kind of shape themselves, that you don't really have to be smart enough to know what a stock is worth because the price that you see is going to be a pretty accurate reflection of what you should be paying for that stock. So if you see two companies that are identical in every way, and one company has a lower stock price than the other, same number of shares, same everything, then there's a reason why those prices are different. Like going into the store, you see you're looking for a pair of leather shoes, and you see one pair that's $40 and another pair right next to it that's $150. You kind of want to know, you kind of assume like, okay, there must be a reason these shoes cost so much more, right? Because they're right next to each other, and some people are buying the cheap ones, some people are buying the expensive ones. Why would they pick the expensive ones, right? Well, the same thing is true with investing, right? So what Burton Malkiel wanted to do was prove this efficient markets hypothesis. And what it does, and the beauty of it is, it kind of allows anybody to invest and to kind of know that you're going to kind of still get what you pay for. That even if you randomly pick the stocks that you add to your portfolio, you're going to still be as okay financially as a person who went to Harvard and studied investing and knows all the different kinds of stocks that are out there. Okay, so what he did to prove this theory was he got a bunch of monkeys in a lab, and he had monkeys pick stocks. And the way they picked the stocks was he had them throw darts at a wall. And if the dart landed on IBM, they would buy a share of IBM. The dart landed on CBS, they buy a share of CBS, whatever, right? And he created this group of stocks that were picked by the monkeys who were throwing darts at a wall. And in order to make sure that the monkeys didn't cheat, he blindfolded the monkeys. So he had blindfolded monkeys throwing darts at a wall to pick stocks. So what he did then was he took this group of stocks that were picked by the blindfolded monkeys throwing darts at a wall, and he compared the money that was made by the monkeys to the smartest, most highly educated experts on Wall Street. These are the guys that went to Harvard and Yale, who invested for a living, managing multi-billion-dollar funds. And do you know what happened? The same results. The monkeys won half of the time. They replicated the experiment over and over. Sometimes the monkeys won, sometimes the experts won. Whenever the experts would win, the monkeys would get them the next time. So it's quite fascinating. You would say, well, how in the hell can blindfold monkeys make as much money as leading experts when it comes to investing? Well, that's what the efficient markets hypothesis does for us. He won a Nobel Prize for that experiment. It's in a book called A Random Walk Down Wall Street, written in 1973. So what does that translate to for us? It translates into this very basic idea that anybody can invest, and you're going to be okay as long as you get in the game. The biggest mistake you can make when it comes to investing is to not invest at all. When you're not in the game, you're guaranteed to lose because the monkeys will make more money than you because at least they were buying stocks. And you might be off buying new pairs of shoes. You're not going to win if you're buying shoes and Popeye's chicken and everything else, and they're buying stocks and bonds. You understand? So what I'm saying is, if any of this makes you nervous or confuses you or seems complicated, just do what the monkeys did. Take the pressure off. Just the monkeys wasn't thinking about all this. The monkeys wasn't sitting around analyzing their portfolio, trying to figure out which stock to buy and what to do next and all that. They threw the dart at the wall and then went off and ate bananas. And really, the good investors, there are people who have become millionaires by doing exactly that. Just pick your stocks, go eat your bananas, go do whatever you're going to do, and don't even think about it. Just have something on autopilot where your money's automatically going into the market. Apps like Acorn, Stash, and Robinhood, which I'll show you right now. In fact, let me pull them up on the screen. These are great ways to set up something where you can have money automatically taken out of your account, and you're automatically investing, and you'll see your portfolio automatically grows. These three apps all have different features. They all do different things. Acorns is really good for people that are true beginners that don't even want to think about it. It lets you take money actually off of your credit card, the change from your transactions on your credit card. So if you spend $88.24, they'll ask you if you want to take the other 76 cents and put it in the stock market. So Acorns really has opened up investing for a lot of people. And then what they do is they just ask you the most important questions that need to be asked in investing. How old are you and how much risk do you want in your portfolio? Risk seems like a bad thing, but actually risk leads to higher returns over time. So when you're younger, you're 24, 25, 26 years old, you should have more risk in your portfolio than somebody who's 55, 56 years old because you have enough time. Remember I told you there's never been a time where the market went down and never came back up. The only variation is that sometimes it takes a little longer than others. So if I'm 65 and about to retire, I might not be able to wait out the storm if the market decides to crash for the next year or two or whatever. But if I'm 24, 25 years old, I have all the time in the world. So a 24-year-old would take on more risk than, say, a 64, 65-year-old, right? So Acorns will ask you a couple of basic questions. And when I went on that app, as simple as that app is, I could instantly tell that there was brilliance behind it. It is so simple. And it was beautiful because they asked literally 2 questions to get people started investing, and I said, my God, they figured it out. They know exactly the right 2 questions to ask. I instantly knew, I said, okay, they probably have Nobel Prize winners to help them design this app because they know how to take the complicated and make it real, real, real simple. Almost like when Tiger Woods, his daddy, was still alive, and Tiger was going through controversies and stuff back then. He was better at dealing with controversy when his daddy was around. It was that crazy white woman that messed him up. But anyway, back when Tiger when his daddy was alive, his daddy, Tiger was all stressed out because everybody was, throwing all this stuff at him. He was getting used to being in the public eye. There was all this controversy and everything else. And his father said, forget all that other nonsense. Just put the ball in the hole. If you put the ball in the hole, everything else will work itself out. And that's what Tiger did. All he focused on was putting the ball in the hole. And that worked for him, right? So same thing is true when it comes to investing. The Acorns app is great because they ask you the very basic questions. They make it very, very simple. And that's how they got millions of people to invest. Stash is a little different. Stash actually allows you to go deeper into knowing exactly what kinds of portfolios you're picking, what kinds of asset classes you're picking. So Acorns just says, look, do you want high, medium, or low risk? And then they just invest in a bunch of stuff. They say, don't you worry about the rest. We got it. We'll just get you out there and you're good. And it works. But then Stash kind of says, okay, well, what do you like? What do you want to pick? Do you like fashion? We got fashion stocks. You like China? We got stocks you can invest in where you own a piece of China. Do you like the defense industry? We got defense stocks. Are you environmentally conscious? We got these environmental companies, right? So they kind of perform these or put together these different portfolios that you can pick. You don't always know exactly what's in it. Like they can tell you if you read the fine print. But, that's a good way to kind of have some fun with it. And then Robinhood goes a little deeper where they let you pick the individual stocks that you want. So picking the individual stocks means that you go in and you say, I know I want to own some X number of shares of Ford, or I want to buy some Tesla, or I want to buy some Walmart, right? But the key idea at the end of the day is they all get to the same objective. The objective that you want to get to is you need to be diversified. That means your money needs to be spread out. So let me show you the power of investing. Let me back this up a little bit. Okay. All right, so let's look at this right quick. Everything's popping up here, so I don't know what that's about. But anyway, let me show you something. One of the things I've been really, really trying to push to help all of us understand that we can invest and how it works, what I did was I put together what I call the $5 a day investment plan. And I explained it when I put it out there and I was talking to people about it. People thought that I was saying, everybody send $5 to me. I was like, no, $5 to yourself. And so the $5 a day investment plan basically is me saying to every person that listens, invest at least $5 a day for your family and for your children and put it in the stock market, and let me show you the power of $5 a day. So if somebody did $5 a day, which is about $150 a month, most people spend 3 times more than that on their car notes. A lot of people do. $5 a day in weekly auto deposits. What that would do is that in 10 years, that person would have $29,000 based on the history of the stock market. I can't predict the future, but I can look at the past. If you look at past data, a person that invested $5 a day would have at least about $29,000 if they invested like the monkeys. Just spread the money out, $5 a day on average, $29,000. In 20 years, this person would have $102,000. 30 years, they'd have $281,000. In 40 years, they'd have $750,000. Now, let me tell you why this is fascinating. Out of this $29,000, about $18,000 is what you actually have put in yourself. That's the $5 a day multiplied by 365 days a year, multiplied by 10, you have $18,000. The last $11,000 is the result of what I refer to as financial fertility. That's your money working for you. That is your money, literally like an employee going out and hustling on the plantation fields or whatever it is, right? Your money's out here hustling for you, and your money said, "Oh, well, we went out and we brought back 11,000 extra dollars that you didn't have because we were out working for you." Your money has become your employee, right? And then what's fascinating about it, though, is it's a lot like the fertility of animals, right? Every generation, the fertility expands even further. So let's look at this a little deeper. So in 20 years, this person would have, if they'd done this, let's say they started doing this in the 1980s or 1990s and they did it up until the current day, this person would have $102,000. Now, pay attention though. Out of that $102,000, only $36,000 of those dollars are money that you actually put in. So the other, was it 64? Is it 64? $66,000. $66,000. $66,000 is money that came from your money working for you. That's free money that came from the fact that you invested instead of spent that money. A person that spends never gets this. They think that they're poor, but they spend $5 a day over the course of several years and they have nothing to show for it. And then they say, "Oh my God, the struggle is real." But a smart person said, "No, I'm gonna put $5 a day in my stock portfolio. I've got $102,000. $68,000 resulted from your money working for you. The $68,000 that you got for free exceeds the $36,000 that you put in. So you literally have more money that was given to you than you actually put in yourself. Almost the same way 2 people have a baby, or they have several kids, and then their kids have kids, and then their kids have kids. Next thing you know, you're trying to figure out how these 2 grandparents produce, 57 great-grandchildren or whatever, right? Well, that's how money does. Money has generations, because every time your dollar bill gives birth to a baby dollar bill, well, that baby dollar bill is also fertile. So you got multiple generations of dollar bills reproducing more and more dollar bills. So it's almost like if you were trying to collect rabbits. Let's say your goal was to have as many rabbits as you possibly could. One approach would be, this is the almost like the worker-laborer approach. One approach would be, okay, rabbits cost $5 a piece. This week I'm gonna buy 2. Every week I'm gonna buy 2 more. And so every week I'm gonna buy 2 rabbits. 50 weeks in a year, 52 weeks in a year, I have 104 rabbits by the end of the year, and then I do that every year. In 2-3 years, I'm gonna have 312 rabbits, right? Because I'm buying 2 rabbits a week, right? But that's obviously a naive approach, right? A better approach might be to say, okay, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get 5 male rabbits and 5 female rabbits, and I'm gonna put them in a cage together. I'm gonna turn the lights down, turn on some Marvin Gaye, and let nature take its course, right? And if you do that generation after generation, then before you know it, you're gonna have dozens and eventually hundreds and maybe even thousands of little bunny rabbits if you keep on breeding and reproducing the rabbits. The same thing is true for how a virus spreads. If there was a virus that was contagious that was in this room and we all went out into the public, literally the mathematics shows that if the virus is contagious enough, it could spread to 50 million people in a week or 2. And that's why we go back to biology. Remember, I told you, most of the equations that define how money grows when you invest are the same equations that are used to describe how plants grow or how viruses spread. Because your money is supposed to be fertile and reproductive, just like a virus is, just like bunny rabbits are. But you have to tap into that fertility in order to make it real. That's where rich people come from. Just like they taught you how where babies come from, that's where rich people come from. They come from financial fertility. So let's go deeper in this, but let's look at these numbers in a little more detail. So notice here, you got $11,000 in free money because you invested for 10 years. Here you get $68,000, but you only doubled the amount of time. So if it were straight, what they call linear, then you would think, well, wait, I got $11,000 for the first 10 years. I should get $22,000 for the next 10. No, the fertility concept creates a multiplicative effect, multiplying, right? So the 20-year mark, you have $68,000. Let's go 30 years. Here, pay attention. You had $18,000 you put in here, $36,000 you put in here, $54,000 you put in here, but yet you have $281,000. Somebody tell me, what's $281,000 minus $54,000? Who can give me that number the fastest? Sorry? 246? That ain't right. 227, thank you. Yeah, 227. Good try though. All right, so 227. So pay attention. $11,000 in free money as a result of financial fertility for 10 years. $68,000 as a result of investing for 20 years. $227,000 after 30 years. And you go down here, 18, 36, 54, 72. The vast majority of that money, that's almost $700,000, about what, 680,000, something like that, close to it, that you get because you've allowed your money to grow. You've tapped into financial fertility. You've tapped into the power of compound interest, which is another way to describe financial fertility. That's why Albert Einstein said that compound interest or financial fertility was the most powerful force in the universe, because a person who is very consistent with $5 a day, they might be poor when they start, but they're not poor when they finish. In fact, they're out of poverty in the first 10 years. Now, how many people do you know who are broke as hell, poor as hell, always in the struggle, always talking about how little money they have, who spend $5 a day on nonsense, on stupid stuff, on absolute bullshit? In fact, let's look at the things that cost less than $5. You can get a Big Mac value meal, but I think that's more than $5 actually. You can get maybe a large latte at Starbucks, but you might have to get a medium because the large might cost a little more than $5. The average cost of a trip to the movies for a family of four is $60. Did y'all know this? The average new car note in America is $479. I think it's actually gone up since we put these slides together. So people give away their futures every single day. They throw away their opportunity constantly, but then they say that there is no opportunity. Well, a lot of it is because they don't understand how money is supposed to be used. It's almost like me sitting on really fertile soil with diamonds buried in the ground that has an oil well underneath that, and me starving to death because all I have is this patch of land. Well, why am I going to starve to death? Well, because I don't know how to use the fertile soil, because I've never learned how to grow a crop. I don't get the power and the value of the diamonds because I don't know how to look for them, and I don't even know what to do with a diamond. I don't get all the wealth that comes from the oil because I don't know how to drill for the oil, and I may not even know that the oil is there. So the same thing is true when you talk about the little money in our pocket that we don't understand actually grows into big money if you make consistent investments. Now, the last piece about this that I really love is that, $5 a day, I set that number very low because I wanted 99% of all black people to be able to reach that number. But really, for serious people that are really trying to really build, do some serious empire building, I challenge them. I say, well, why not try to do $20 a day? A lot of us spend $20 at lunch. $20 a day times 30 days, about $600 a month. That's a stretch. That's a push for a lot of people. But some of y'all got it like that. Some of y'all can afford it like that, right? And so what happens is if you take this number from $5 a day to 20, then all these numbers multiply by 4. So when you get out here to this 40-year mark, you're not talking about 750,000. You're talking about 3 million. So your family's now officially a millionaire family. You get here just in 20 years. That 102 becomes 408. It's a great way to turn your child into a millionaire by investing for them consistently on the day that they're born, or maybe even starting before they're born. Some of y'all don't have kids yet. Well, why not start investing for your kids now? The reason my daughter lives good today is because I started investing for her before she was born, because I knew one day I was going to have a child, and I needed to be prepared for that. So let's kind of hop through. I want to go ahead and answer a few of your questions. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to at least do the $5 a day plan. Aim higher if you can. Automatically deposit at least that $35 a week in an investment account for any children you have. So I would say for every child, do at least $5 a day. That's a good way to start. Maybe do more if you can. Don't worry about picking the right stock at the right time. You want to be in it long term. You want to go wide and you want to go far. So that means that you're not thinking about the next week or the next month or the next year. You're thinking about the next 10, 20 years. Also, you're not trying to pick one or two stocks at a time. You're trying to go for hundreds of different stocks. And so ultimately, if you do that and you also make sure you diversify, then you're going to be in a good economic position. When you analyze, when we break down and we look at how wealthy people were able to accumulate the wealth that separated them from the middle class and the lower class, the number one culprit is always stock market participation. So if you want to get into that group, you want to shift up the class, you want to move up your family for a generation, that's what you do. And the beauty of it is that this is a great opportunity for those of you, especially if you come from a family where money is tight or where there are bad cycles that need to be broken, this is your chance to be the hero. This is your chance to be the person where they look back and say, that's where it all began. It all began when Uncle Buck started getting everybody to invest and started investing a little bit at a time. And I know some people like that. I know a young lady who's doing really well now, and she talks about how her great-great-great-grandmother started investing in the 1920s. And she said that she didn't have much money, but she would just take her little pennies and put it in the stock market. And that money accumulated to literally hundreds of thousands of dollars. And she said, that's how I got the down payment on my house. That's how I paid for school. That's how I paid for my wedding. That's how we stayed out of debt, was because of what my great-great-great-grandmother did. Or I guess it was one or two greats. I can't remember which one. But she said it was my great-great-grandmother and what she did in the 1920s that led us to have a better life in the year 2018. So keep that in mind. Don't think about today. Think about what's going to happen 100 years from today. That's what you want to process. All right, so let me answer a few questions before we go, because I've been told to wrap it up. So I'm going to do rapid fire question and answer. Now, you know what? I see your 3 hands go up, but this brother had his hand up early, so I'm going to start with him. Then I'll just do that diagonal, okay? Yes, sir. Yeah, I think that maybe for that type of trading, you might need to have some like a capital base. I don't think you need a ton of money to start trading commodities, but he might have been trying to do something that involved maybe, trading on margin or getting leverage and things like that. That's what that sounds like. I don't think, because if you want to just start buying commodities, you can just buy them, with very little money. But I think he was probably doing something a little more sophisticated, which might require him to have a capital base, which is true. They expect that for you to be able to do higher level stuff. Yes, sir. Let me think here. Oh, is there a book that we recommend? You know what? I have some stock market books. Actually, if you go to the website, I list a lot of the books that I like at thedrboycelibrary.com. So if you go to thedrboycelibrary.com, there'll be a ton of books listed there in different areas. I will say, I would encourage you really honestly to get started first and then start reading the books after. Because the thing is, it doesn't have to be real complicated. It really doesn't to get started. Yes, ma'am. I don't know if they can. I think they can. I know they can connect to your bank account. So let's say you got automatic, auto deposit, where your check goes into your account. They can take the money out of the account. Now, I don't know if they can get it directly from your employer, but they can get it directly from the account. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. Okay. Yes, sir. Is it smart to take equity from your home to put it in the stock market of your business? The second question is, when's the good time to what? Oh, taking money out. Okay. All right, so I'm going to give you my perspective on this. My opinion is not definitive. It's a little bit like asking me what my favorite color is, right? That doesn't mean it's the right answer. It just means it's an answer that gives you a point of view. Okay, so the home equity question, is it good to take equity out of your home to put in the stock market? I think it can make sense from a diversification standpoint. A lot of people have most of their wealth tied up in their home. I would say if you follow the idea of diversification, then you don't want to do that. You don't want to have everything in your house. So I could say it would make sense to just sort of spread the money out. Just the same way if you have a business that's doing really well and that's where all your money's at, all your wealth is tied up, you want to really start thinking about that risk of what happens if your business goes dead. So basically the idea is just take that money out and sort of spread it out a little bit. I think it would be okay to do that. And then also even for a business, if you're really well trained, I mean, I believe the easiest pathway to build a lot of wealth is to really be trained super well as an entrepreneur. Like, I really think if you want to me, the new dream, like the old dream was like NBA, NFL, and all that stuff that never works and everybody ends up broke. The real dream for the young black children needs to be entrepreneurship millions. Like, if they're really trained, like from the age of 6, really at a really high level on how to start businesses, it's much easier to become a millionaire. Like, for example, if I give you the top 10% of all basketball players in every city, 99% of them will never make a penny playing basketball. But if you give me the top 10% of entrepreneurs in every city, the majority of them will be millionaires. The majority, right? So ultimately, if you are trained, and I encourage you maybe listen to podcasts, take classes, talk to people about businesses, things like that, and then the skills will kind of come. You just gather information slowly. And then what'll happen is one day you may see an opportunity that's huge. Just an untapped market, something where you say, oh my God, we can put 5,000 in and flip that into 20,000, right? And grow beyond that. Because there's tons of business opportunities in the black community. Because black folks are always spending money. There's money everywhere, right? If you see that, then a logical thing to do, which I don't think is a bad move, is to maybe take some money out of other things like your home equity or whatever it is and go ahead and put some of that money into the business. But there's ways to do it. There's a process to that. Entrepreneurship isn't as simple as investing in the stock market. So you probably want to take a class on it and just sort of learn ways where you can invest without betting the whole farm on it. A lot of people will start a business and put everything that they have into the business, and next thing you know, they're broke. You don't want to do that. Read the book, The $100 Startup. Read The $100 Startup because it sort of shows how you can start businesses without betting everything and potentially losing everything. But I'm gonna tell you, that's the way I've seen people really make fast money and make lots of it, is really, really obsessing themselves with finding business opportunities. I wouldn't spend my life being obsessed about finding a good job. Okay, it looks like we got time for one more question. I see you got a microphone. Okay, this brother and then this sister in the back, and then we can be done. Is that right, Brian? Is that time to be done? Okay, gotcha. Okay, great. Yes, sir.
Okay, I want to ask 2 questions. One, what is your opinion on Bitcoin and how that's going? And 2,
That's okay.
I'm not getting to work. I got 1,000 things for all y'all to do. 2, do you have any ideas on how to better business credit? You have personal credit. I'm trying to work on my business credit, and it's not going so well.
Okay, so let me break that into. I'm gonna give 3 30 to 45-second responses to the questions, your 2 and his, because I didn't answer your second question. When's a good time to sell? I'm not a big believer in selling. I'm a big believer in accumulating assets. That's how people become wealthy. They're not buying it with the plan to sell. They're buying it with the plan to own. And so the times when I sell, like stocks, bonds, real estate, anything like that, is my money, once it becomes capital, it's never for spending. Like, I'm never going to spend it. Only thing I might do is I might sell stocks so I can go buy some real estate. Or I might sell real estate so I can invest in something else. So you're moving the capital from one form to the other. You're not ever going to just eat it and destroy it. Like, that's my line of thinking, right? So that's when, you answer that question. Now, you asked about Bitcoin. I feel like Bitcoin, and this is something that I really tried to push very early when I first started talking about it. I think cryptocurrency in general is a great industry. I think that there's a lot of potential there. I think that it has the capacity to change the world. But The problem is that if you ask most experts about cryptocurrency, nobody will give you a clear answer, or everybody's going to give you different answers on what they think the future will hold. And the reason is because a lot of people don't understand it. There are a lot of unknowns. Also, people don't know how the regulators are going to respond. If government regulation supports cryptocurrency, then it's going to be easier for it to grow than if they don't support it, right? So when I invested in crypto, one of the things I mentioned, and it was hard to do this because people got really drunk off crypto. Like they really got to the point where they thought of it as a sure thing, and I'm going to borrow off my credit card, and it's going to double next week, and blah, blah, blah. And the thing about crypto was that, and I still believe this, you shouldn't invest more than you're prepared to lose. Even though people who created some of these major coins, Litecoin, stuff like that, they were pretty much saying like, look, just beware. Like Litecoin has crashed and it's $200 now. It could easily drop to $1. So just be ready for that, right? So a lot of people weren't ready for that. So I think a lot of people got really scared when the market kind of cooled off. What I have done with my crypto is so the best way for me to tell you what I think is to tell you what I do, not just talk about it, but to be about what I say. I kept my crypto. It's just sitting there. And now I'm pissed off that the value dropped so much. I've accumulated some more, but I make sure I diversify. I invest in a lot of different areas, not just in crypto. And I'm sitting there just kind of waiting for something good to happen. But I didn't buy it so I could sell it as soon as the market either went up or went down. I bought into it because I wanted to be a long-term investor in an industry that I believe has the capacity to change the world. I still believe that. The technology is really, really good, but when that's going to happen, nobody knows. Nobody knows when the egg is going to hatch. So if you want to go into it, it's not for the faint of heart. It's a lot more volatile. It's a lot more of a dangerous market. So if you get into it, don't put more into it than you're prepared to lose. That's the biggest advice I could give you. Now you asked the last question. What was the last one again? Business credit. I would take the time to really learn the fundamentals of credit and how that works, right? Just how those credit scores are computed. And with businesses and consumers, it's kind of very similar, right? So with credit, the biggest factor in credit is paying your bills on time, right? Do you pay your bills on time? So obviously with a business, if I'm trying to establish business credit, I might consider going through with the bank and getting secure credit cards, and where you actually have to put up the money to get the card, but then you're paying it off consistently, you're getting a track record. Try to find bills to pay where that's going to go onto your business credit score so that your score will have time to accumulate. Just know that when you first start off as an entrepreneur, a lot of the stuff that you try to borrow money for, they're not going to want the business to guarantee anything. They're going to want you to guarantee it. Because another factor, a huge factor in credit, is just how long your credit history is. So if your business got started 6 months ago, it's a lot more difficult for you to get credit than if your business started 6 years ago. One trick I've seen people apply is that there are lots of companies online like PayPal and Cabbage and a few others that are loaning money for working capital for entrepreneurs that can't get traditional bank loans. Those loans, the interest rates are very high, but the investment opportunities are very good. And so a lot of people say, well, I'd rather borrow from PayPal at a high interest rate than to not have the capital at all that I need in order to make my next move. So a lot of these other companies are getting into the whole lending space as well. So that could be a good place to kind of get started. But even they kind of expect you to have some kind of track record they can use to guarantee that they can protect their capital. So ultimately, I think that secured route is probably the best route you want to go through. You may even want to consider getting a consultant or getting somebody who specializes in business credit to just work with your company and help you set some systems in place so you can build that credit up. Because I think the most frustrating thing in the world is when you're spending a lot of money and you're doing a lot of business and you have a lot of money coming in, but you still can't get the credit that you deserve. And that's a lot of times that's because it's not being tracked in the proper way. So find a way to make sure it's all being tracked in the proper way so that when you do pay things off, you're getting credit for that. Like, for example, PayPal operates in its own ecosystem. Their thinking is, well, we don't care what your credit score is or what your business credit score is. We look at your PayPal account. We make you sign a contract that says that if you do not pay us back, we can go in your account and take our money. And we also have a record of how much money you're bringing into that account. So they use that to decide how they're going to loan you money. Because at the end of the day, that's what the banks are trying to figure out is, what are the chances I'm going to lose my money? What I have found is that traditional banks are so damn conservative that they really they'll pass up good opportunities on a regular basis because they don't want to take any risks. The online companies will take a lot more risk, and I think that's a better avenue for entrepreneurs. Yes, ma'am. I think this will be the last question, then I'm going to have to get. Yes, ma'am. America Trade? Ameritrade? Oh, Ameritrade's fine. I have an account with Ameritrade. TD Ameritrade, yeah, I use them too. I'm not, no, just because I didn't put them up here doesn't mean I don't think it's a good company. Ameritrade, E-Trade, I think Scott Trade. There's a lot of places where you can trade. So Ameritrade's fine. I've had an account with them for a very long time, and I'm not here, I don't work for any of these people, so I'm not here like trying to push you to one product or the other. I encourage you just to look at a lot of different options and pick the one that works best for you. I like the apps because the apps are built to be user-friendly. Ameritrade has a lot of options, but it can be a little overwhelming too. So it's sort of up to you to decide how you want to approach it. Yeah, they do. They have really good learning tools. So, okay, yes, ma'am, and then I'm done. Then we gotta be done. So, yes, ma'am. Why do I what? Oh, I don't recommend them all. I just recommend you pick one. Yeah. It doesn't have to be. It's just for people like me that are lazy, they just want to do it one time. But if you want to do it manually, you can do it manually. It's totally up to you. No, the credit reporting agencies don't pay any attention to your investment accounts. They might, if you're looking for a loan, they might want to look at what kind of assets you have to back it up and stuff like that. But and you can use that as part of your collateral. But they don't pay attention in the credit bureaus. All right, everybody. So the follow-up, and I was going to put this on the screen, but since we're out of time, I'll just go ahead and tell you. If you want to get a free month in the Black Stock Market Program, go to theblackstockmarketprogram.com. Try it out for 30 days if you'd like. There's a ton of curricula, ton of material, a ton of everything. I encourage you to bring your family, bring your children, have them sort of exposed to the information so that they get the chance to learn this at an early age. Children that learn how to invest early have a far, far, far higher likelihood of doing well financially than kids who are never taught this. So teach this to your children, teach it to your family, and that's the best way to build your family empire. So I wish you guys the best, and I'll thank you, and it was great talking to you. I'll see you soon.